This is Pastor Jim with today's 5-minute challenge. And what I've titled this one, was what the Lord showed me, is just 2 simple words: find rest. And you're thinking, what? Are you under a rock somewhere? Don't you realize what's going on? All these things we're in a state of upheaval. We got masks going on and social distancing and things closed and all this stuff happening. Kids can't go to school. And I'm supposed to be rest? I'm supposed to find rest? Yes. I know this is a really tumultuous time, a really time of upheaval. In my lifetime, I don't remember a time there was so much unrest. It's almost unnatural unrest. But there is still a way that you can find rest. Jesus gave us a way. And it's not just, okay, if I get more sleep, or if I can just get a vacation, if I can just get away, if I can just isolate myself from the circumstances. No, those things aren't necessarily bad to have rest or to have vacation, but there is a place where you can have and you can find rest in the midst of circumstances. And so the scripture that I want to go to today is in Matthew. It's Matthew chapter 11, starting on verses 28. And Jesus is speaking, and he's saying, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden." That probably identifies with a lot of us, especially during these times when circumstances and troubles and the news and other things that are coming on are just piling things on. It feels like everybody's piling on. So we can feel like that. And so Jesus said, he's talking to you. He said, "Come to me and I will give you rest." Continuing on in verse 29, he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest." So I want to break that verse up now and just take it apart, because this is the key that he's giving us. He said, if you do this, you will find rest. So if you notice in the beginning of that verse 29, he says, "Take my yoke upon you." Now there's a part that we have to play. We have to be willing to accept that yoke. Now a yoke, my first job was on a farm, but we didn't plow with oxen. But my understanding is that the yoke for oxen there was 2 sides on it, and they would take an inexperienced ox and put it one that was more experienced, and so that the ox that was more experienced would lead and teach. So we, in the same manner, if we're yoked with Jesus, if we're tied up with Jesus, if we're connected to Jesus, then our job is to follow. He did the load. He did the carrying. And he goes on to explain that here in the next part, because he says, "Take my yoke and learn from me." Now, this learning is going to indicate listening to. But even more than just listening and learning how we listen from him, we also have to be aware of where he's moving. So we have to understand, okay, where are you, Lord, taking me? Where are you moving? So I can move with you. Because the struggle and the pull comes if we start moving in a different direction than where the lead ox is leading. That's where it becomes burdensome. That's where it becomes tiresome. But if we're listening and being sensitive to where the Lord is moving, then we walk in that peace, that rest of, hey, he's doing the work. He already did all the work. I'm walking and letting him be the one that's moving. So there's a key there that's really critical. And it's not just being sensitive to his voice, but also being sensitive to where he moves. Because the word said that Jesus moved with compassion. He moved with compassion. And so that same movement we have to be sensitive to. If we're not focused on him, then we're not going to be sensitive to where he's leading. So our focus can't be on circumstances around us, the pressures around us. Okay, Jesus, I'm listening to you and being aware of your movement. Then he wraps it all up in verse 30. So he said, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now there's been times when I've looked at this verse and I say, ha, that's not easy. But then really, if you're feeling like that, no, it's not, it's hard. Then we really have to look at 2 things. Jesus said, my yoke is easy. I say it's hard. One of us is wrong. Guess who? So if we find ourselves feeling that way, go back to verse 29. Repeat. Say, okay, take my yoke, learn from me, and you will find rest. And that's my challenge.